watching SKST Radio.
Well. Welcome to another episode of SKST Radio Real Talk with Cammie, Grayson, and friends. And today is no exception. I have a brand new friend who's really not a friend. He's actually a relative, but I have him on the show today along with co-host Ron Foster, Mr. Dave Wilson. Welcome to the show. Woo!
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here.
Well,
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
About yourself. What you got going on?
Well, right now I am an 8th grade math teacher at Irving ISD. I've actually worked in the oil and gas industry, worked in finance before, but teaching just kind of came natural to me, and that's kind of where my heart is. So I like working with our youth, and trust me, right now, given the state that the country is in, they definitely need more male role models, male teachers in the classroom.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So, well, you know what? That kind of brings us to our topic today. We need it. You hit it right on the nail. What can the state that we're in? People are just doing so many crazy things. Like we talked last week about a young guy who actually kidnapped someone, and then we knew Foster and I both knew this guy, and for him to take this woman and just kidnap her and take her out of state, and then find out this was like his second defense. He's done this before to another lady. Did time and got out, and he did it again. So, do you think the COVID shot made everybody go crazy?
Oh my goodness!
It's probably made things worse. I think things have kind of been bad for a little bit now, but prior to COVID, but with COVID coming into place and the pandemic trying to take it over and shutting everything down, that really, I can tell how it affected, just speaking on my students. This is my 10th year of teaching, by the way. This is year number 10. But I can tell you that just like the guy you just mentioned, lack of accountability. This guy has kidnapped someone and been let back out, and now he's out to do it again, second time. He hasn't been held accountable the first time. Same thing is going on in the classroom. You're having kids that grow up, and there's no accountability anymore. And that's one thing I can say as a teacher. Sometimes it feels like there's a lack of discipline. There's a lack of structure. Kids are at an all-time high of entitlement with no work ethic. So you have a ton of students who don't have a work ethic, who don't have people in their lives who instill that work ethic in them, and they are entitled to everything because they've been getting it. They're used to getting it. I know in my district, we give them paper, pencils, pens. They can come in the next day, lose it, say, "Oh, Mr. Wilson, I left my homework. Can you give me another one?" They turn in their work a week, 2 weeks later, and technically I have to take it. It wasn't like that when I was growing up. You miss an assignment, it was a due date. If you missed the due date, you got your 0. That's not happening anymore, and it's a lack of accountability on our parts. And it kind of feels like the parents are not as involved, and that also is affecting. So you're not getting held accountable at home. You're not being held accountable at school. And you go on for 15, 16, 17, 18 years of not being held accountable, feeling entitled, and having everything given to you. Then all of a sudden, when you hit the real world, now this is the first time you're being held accountable. Now this is the first time somebody holds you to, a punishment of some sort, and it's harsh and it's hard, and people can't cope. And that in return that's why you're starting to see suicide rates are at an all-time high. I'm an 8th grade math teacher, and I had 3 or 4 students who I had, they were on suicide watch.
Wow.
As an 8th grader, I can't think of anything when I was, 12, 13 years old that make me want to say I don't want to be here anymore. And now this is what we're dealing with. This is our new normal, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you mentioned parents. Do you think the parents? Is it safe to say you think the parents are responsible for the behavior of the children now, or?
I would say that parents play some part, but there was an old saying my grandfather used to say: "It takes a village to raise a child." But we've taken that village mentality away a bit. I remember when I was growing up, I always revert back to my childhood. I think I had a pretty good one. But my teachers held me accountable. They were involved in my upbringing. I could think of so many, teachers and coaches who played a big part on the influence in my life, but my parents gave them permission to discipline me. My grandparents gave them permission to discipline me. I knew if I got in trouble at school, my teacher was gonna discipline me. Then I go see the principal. He's gonna discipline me. He's gonna call my grandfather. He's gonna discipline me. The lady at the church, if she heard about it before I got home, I was gonna have to hear it from her too. Like it took. I knew I was gonna be held accountable on all fronts.
Right.
And now legally, they've actually taken all of that part away. The children can actually say that they felt uncomfortable with a look even. Am I correct with that?
Absolutely.
Spoke to me a little too sternly. This is, it's ridiculous at this point. I truly think so. Yeah, this kids have, I'm not saying that they're not entitled to rights, but still, I mean, come on, just some of the things I've heard, what a 5-year-old saying something about the teacher looked at me the wrong way, or this was taken from me and I feel uncomfortable now. I don't want to be in this classroom anymore. And they take all those things serious, or take an allegation home to the parent who probably had some background where they were not disciplined well in school. Then all of a sudden that parent comes in and actually with what happened to them when they were in school, and they actually stamp that onto the situation, and it just builds up into all these big things that just started with the teacher took my pencil, or would not let me keep my cell phone. Well, first of all, you shouldn't have had a cell phone in the first place. See, you're smiling because you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I was going to say that I can't tell you how many times I've had issues with those cell phones. Cell phones are a big problem for the kids. That is like their lifeline. Yeah. So I already you're hitting the nail on the head for sure. But I'm not saying that all the blame, to answer your question, I'm not saying all the blame is on the parents, but because they've taken those rights away, like you said, and the parents, a lot of times, once you meet the parents, sometimes you see why the kids act like they are. You see where you see where the kids get it from once you meet them. And a lot of times the parents are always a lot of parents are in denial about their children. They are in denial, like totally delusional. The kids have their parents wrapped around their finger, and you wouldn't believe. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a co-host that was on the show, and I think part of her child's behavior is one reason why she had to stop doing the show. The child was very disruptive, going in the front door, going out, going in the front door, being dropped off, and going out the back door. Telling teachers, she was being abused. And the crazy thing is, though, and that's what I was going with this, is that particular mother was screaming for help, and she couldn't get any help.
Wow.
And that's pretty bad. And I remember going through that kind of stuff with my daughter. It's hard, and you can't control. You got these bipolar children now. You got, parents are afraid. Some of these parents are afraid of their child. That's the age, unfortunately, 8th grade, that's the age where they started getting real rebellious,
And that's the same reason also that I like to work with that age group. That they've asked me to move up to high school before, and I was like, no, I'm cool where I am. I like 7th grade, 8th grade. That's the range where I feel like I'm most effective, because that's kind of the age in my mind where the clay hardens, per se. It's either it's where you can, it's like your last chance to make that true change. Sometimes people get it in high school, but you catch them around 7th and 8th grade, you can have a big imprint on them in either the right way or the wrong way. So I try to steer as many of them the right way as I can.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. My working with Girls Inc. days, it was like my 9th through 11s, they were in the middle of being elementary to middle, you know what I mean? And it was real hard because some of them, their parents made them grow up before they really needed to grow up.
Absolutely. I was about to speak on that. I know I have quite a few students who are pretty much the parent. I have one student who's actually like the oldest of 4, and mom is sick, terminally ill, and dad just wasn't around. So you got an 8th grade student that's pretty much taking care of three younger siblings, like pretty much a full-time parent, and trying to do, they're not coming to school worried about my math problems. They worried about their siblings. Did they eat this morning? Did they get to school on time? Did I get them dressed? And they're checking their little siblings' homework in the evening, and then they're washing clothes and trying to make a meal, and didn't have to worry about my homework. They're not worried about that.
Yeah.
They're just trying to survive, just trying to make it through.
Right. And children like that, you do have to try to get them some help because they are the ones who really need the help. Those kids that are trying to do it and trying to make it, and they have other people, counting on them. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
that's a big burden for those, those type of children, but it happens. It really does.
It definitely does.
You spoke about the entitlement piece. So once they're finished with school, let's say they graduated or not graduated, and now they're in the work industry, and that's when I get them. That's when Cammie gets them. And I'm sure you've dealt with that before too, having to hire people, have an assistant, and holding them accountable for certain things. I had an employee just the other day to literally there was a discrepancy with just something that could be worked out just by a conversation. Time wasn't put in correctly. Okay. So of course, they go through certain change, and then it gets to the actual person that's their supervisor. Okay. So now you're talking to me, right? And I said, okay, why didn't you show up for work today? Well, because I don't work for chump change, or I said, excuse me? Excuse me? You work for this employer for X amount of time. So you're still within your 30, 60, 90-day period. I need you to hold your schedule, work the schedule that you're given. I'm billing something here. Work the schedule that you're given. If any issues come up, you have a chain of command that you go through. I said, but in the midst of that, I understand what you said. I've already corrected the issue because I noticed it on my end, but now you keep calling this one part. They're not being the skills that they had before that they taught in school, that parents would teach how to navigate through certain things. Those things are not happening. Those things are not happening. That's what I'm trying to say here. He literally, this individual told me, well, I will not be there because I don't work for chump change, and this was incorrect. I don't know what you're gonna do.
Okay. Wow.
Well, and if my understanding is, even the starting rate with you guys are at least what, $11, $12 an hour?
Well, no, this is like a $15 an hour.
15. Yes,
it's
it's
like
gonna
a
push up to
$15 an
15.
hour post.
Chump change?
But chump change, but it was some other things involved. I will tell you, it was some other things involved. But still, just to go to, well, I'm just not going to work. Wow, I never had that choice. I never had that choice. And then you involve HRs and all that, and well, we have to do this and we have to do that. And, wait a minute. Let's stop for a second here. Where did this go wrong? Where did this go wrong? Why did this person even have the attitude? Why do they feel that they can speak to me in this manner?
I can honestly say, man, I feel like
23 years old.
I believe it. I believe it. As much and as hard as educators are working, I believe the system just when I'm speaking on the system, I'm talking about the educational system nationwide. It's at this point, it's setting them up for failure because I feel like we are enablers at this point. Teachers have become enablers. The system has become enablers. Like I said, we give them a million deadlines they don't have to meet. They get a million chances when they get in trouble. They're not answering to anybody at home. They don't have, and the system is set up where now it's hard for us to discipline them at school. They go to ISS, they sit in there all day for a few days or a week or so, and then they come back to class doing the same thing. Nothing has been corrected. That's like the worst thing that we can do to them is send them to in-school suspension, ISS. And that's them sitting in one room all day instead of them getting being able to switch classes and hang with their friends.
Right.
That's
So let me,
that's the worst punishment that they have, and I'm like, they don't care about that. That doesn't affect them. That's not going to make them change the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
so Dave, what do you think the solution is? What can we do? How can we mentor people that's in, how can we mentor our students right now and not be in the immediate family or an actual teacher? What can we do as community people to kind of
Mhm.
help fix this situation?
Um, Join a mentorship program. You mentioned Girls Inc. I was part of one called the Marcus Graham Project. I've told my fraternity brothers, I told my line brothers the same thing. Hey guys, I know you're busy. I know you got your big time jobs and all of that. Take some time to go mentor to some children in your community. Join a mentorship group, please, please, please. You might not believe it, but these kids will appreciate it in the long run. They need it. They need to see positive. I just speak from a standpoint of being a Black man or Hispanic man in a, that's who's in my community. That's the community I
Right.
grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
They need to see positive male role models. So if you can join a mentorship group, if you can be a coach, anything that you could do where you can speak in front of young men, young people as a group and speak positively, speak life into them, they need it. Any type of time you can give is going to be helpful. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know I'm not real familiar with the school system here in Virginia. I mean Foster most definitely can chime on that, but I think it's everywhere, not just in Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Right.
it's all over everywhere, and
Nationwide. Yeah.
yeah,
Nationwide.
and it's getting worse.
It's
So
getting
at this
worse.
point, you got kids; they're able to go pick up guns and go shoot up schools. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
Right.
so
It's
with that being said, we made the mistake. How can we fix that? Right now, you mentioned entitlement.
mhm.
They
um
can do whatever they want.
they can. I think mental health is important as well. It's something that's starting to be addressed more now. You hear more people talk about it, but I think like I said, I have never seen, and this is my first year uh, experiencing so many students with psychological issues like this. I've had some students in my past, but I worked at the previous school I worked at was a smaller school, but this is my first time in a very large school district. But I had never seen this many children with psychological issues needing to. Counselors are very important, probably the most important to me, the most important people on my campus. Just being able to talk about what they're going through and how they're managing because they have no one. Again, it goes back to home. No one is at home that can give them proper guidance. The best guidance that they're getting, the best advice they're getting are from their counselors and from their teachers. So the things that we say to them are important. Speaking life to them is important. When they do a good job, I have to say, good job, such and such. Good job, Jenny.
So,
Good
so
job.
positive reinforcement. Positive.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
do you think that, okay, so even with all the changes that have happened in our country, well, and
Mhm.
nationwide, with the school system and taking certain rights away from the teachers to actually discipline and all, do you think some of that did speak to the way some teachers, I did have those teachers in my background that sort of went a little too far, that said a little too much. A few
Right.
bad apples actually spoiled the bunch. You know how they say that. Do you think
Absolutely.
that's why some of this went awry, because of some experiences that the adult people who are making decisions now were
Mhm.
treated when they were in school? You get what I'm saying? You get where
Yeah,
I'm
it's
going
a
with
Absolutely.
that?
cycle.
Absolutely.
And but now that we have certain individuals like you that understand, right? So how you're okay, so I wasn't trained as a teacher. What
Mhm.
type of skills do they give you, the teacher, to deal with things like that?
They do offer some trainings as far as how to respond with some of the personal issues that the kids might have. But for the most part, when it comes to those psychological issues and the family issues that the kids might have, they direct us to direct those things to the counselor
Mm,
for the most part. Now, the best teachers that I've had a personal impact on my life. So they knew the line not to cross, but at the same time were concerned enough about, how I'm doing, outside of the classroom. So, they ask those soft questions, and that's what it's about. It's for example, on my first day, couple of days of school, I asked my students about what they like to do. I asked them their name, favorite movie, favorite food, favorite song, most embarrassing moment, their biggest fear, and I make them talk about those things out loud. And my point in doing that is to and I answer those same questions at the end. So, I tell them my biggest fear, I tell them my most embarrassing moment, so they get to know something about me personally. I've noticed that I get through to more students, and I learned this. I got through to more students when I built those personal relationships. Because once you build that personal relationship, you're more comfortable with me. You feel like you know me better. You feel like I understand you. Now you're ready to listen to some math from somebody that you understand. Hey, this is not just this math teacher, some random guy is just showing up to do a job. He's actually caring about who I am and the things that I like. So I'm more inclined to listen to him and be open to what he has to say. So it's building those relationships that help, I think, with the teaching process. And that's what a lot of teachers don't get. That's what a lot of teachers don't know. So that's a training that I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen a personal training on building relationships, first before going into your math lesson. It's a lot easier for you to listen to me, talk about some pre-algebra, talk about some Pythagorean theorem, when hey, Mr. Wilson has my best interest at heart. He cared about, the things that I like first.
Right.
I commend you on that. That's great. Yeah.
When I was in Dallas, one of my last projects with SKST, I worked with the Recreation Center, and I had my mentoring program. I had a FemTour for the women, for the girls, I should say, and then the mentoring program, and it was the gents. And do you know, because I was a single parent with my son, this was ideal because I love doing the cheerleading and the dance with the girls. But I needed something for my son to be engaged in, right? So we're at the gym, basketball, dance, hip hop, all this stuff. So my program, it worked. But the hardest part for me was to get an African American man to commit to mentoring those boys. It got to the point where women, like I remember Miss Janice, I'll never forget, Miss Janice was sweet. Her son was in the program, but she would actually take point on the boys program. It was so hard. We even had the FedEx basketball league at the gym, and one or two said they would help, but then they would disappear. It was so hard.
You know what? And I don't know if you're gonna agree with me, sir, but just taking that time, there's so, and again, this is why that the little, it's so much pressures that actually come into play with that. The women are natural nourishers. They are. Women always have taken more time out to do certain things. It's almost instinctual. And as for a male like Cammie, you know how much my phone rings. You understand, and it just depends on where you are in life, what your job is, all the restraints that are put on you. Like I'm actually mentoring adults just to get them to come to work, just to make sure that they take care of what they need to take care of on their end. But still, I will say that I feel like I've been given a challenge, right? By Cammie, you've said certain things before, and now you, David, and I'm listening. I'm listening here, and I really think I am going to find some type of program. But like I said, I literally had to allot time to even do this because my phone rings so much. So sometimes it's those pressures that come out of everyday life, actually adulting. But still, if anyone else can do it, I can do it. So I hope in like a week or another month I can actually come back and say, hey, well, contributed this. I've contributed my time in this way. But it's just those
Right.
pressures that are put on men every single day. Not to say it's not put on women, because I've gotten in trouble before. You know I have, Cam. Put my
Yeah.
foot in my mouth. So I'm not trying to do that. But it's just so much. It's just having that time and actually taking that time, to actually go
Right.
out and find a program. It's you have to do the research. You have to listen to things like this. You have to jot down certain organizations that you hear about, or sometimes it's just as easy as going on the internet. I know when I came out of high school and took some college, there were community programs. Like I worked out at the gym, and I saw that there was a need there at the gym. I volunteered at the gym at that time, but that was before my career took off. That was before I started taking on 9 to 5, that 9 to 5
Right.
job and all. So I was able to, it's set in me to do. I'm a natural helper. I like to engage people. I like to bring certain things out of people in general, and finding that age group that I can best suit. Like you said, it is you do the 7th, 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Me knowing, okay, is it teenagers for me? Is it a younger demographic? Like I said, I'm actually mentoring adult, male and
Gotcha.
female. Just
And they
to
need it too,
find the
though.
work.
They
Yeah,
need it too.
They need
They
it too.
need it too.
my phone rings 24 hours a day. So, it's just finding where you're needed. So, I mean, I hope that helps someone to actually feel like I'm challenging you right now. If you're listening, if you're listening, a male, female, it doesn't matter. Find the time, a couple of hours out of your day. Go to your local community centers. Go on, go on a search portal, out of Google, whatever. We're not doing commercials, but type in community programs. Where can I volunteer?
Right.
That's it's easy as that. And that's what I'm gonna do when I stop this podcast today. Because like I want to find a time to do this, of course, but there are certain times. It could even possibly talking to someone over the phone, or they have so many internet programs. When the pandemic hit, everyone
Mhm.
used this type of
Platform. Yeah.
engagement, right? So
Right.
maybe it's just going on the internet and actually starting a program on the internet. Let's hear about you. What's going on with you right now today? How are you feeling? So there you go. That's what I have. And I feel
Gotcha.
challenged to make sure that happens.
So,
Good
David,
stuff.
what do you think? Do you think how would we go about getting the word out to different men to get out there to mentor other children? Because think about it, like Foster was saying, there's a lot of pressures on the African American man, and sometimes
Very.
they don't want that responsibility of having somebody else looking up to them.
That is that is definitely true, and even like he said before, talking about how they took those rights away. Laws have been set against teachers on correcting students. I think a lot of men have also felt that same way. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want somebody saying anything about me. My career is taking off. I don't want anything to interfere with that. But at the same time, if you wanted to make a change, if you want things to get better, if you have complaints about what's going on in brown and black communities, it starts with the men being leaders and stepping up to the plate and making a difference. You have to research those places, and I think the best way to get the word out is just like we're doing right here, letting people know, hey, go mentor. Have you taken some time out? I'm in an all black men's book club. I say it at the end of every book club meeting. Hey, fellas, if you haven't joined a mentorship program, here are a couple of organizations that I recommend, or you can get with my organization and I can put you in touch with somebody, but you guys need to be mentoring. And I keep saying it over and over again. And over time, that starts to wane on the back of their head. They know they have a bigger calling. You as a black male living in your community, if you're a positive role model, if you don't have a record, if you had some type of good positive upbringing, you have a duty to be sure to share that with the next person, the next generation coming up, because a lot of them don't have the benefit of what you had growing up. They don't have the benefit. I had great coaches, great teachers, great uncles, dad, male figures in my life. I can name so many things that I've learned from so many different positive male role models. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
tons of great women in my family, Cammie, you included, but just definitely the male role models that I've had, my grandfather, my uncle, my coaches. I mean, just so many guys that poured into me, and I thank God for that upbreaking. It was tough. Don't get me wrong, it was tough love, but I appreciate that now more than ever.
Definitely. We might have a little. There we go. Okay, you're in two different spots there. We
I had
have
to
Cammie and the ghost Cammie.
I had to
Oh,
reboot here. I
Got
froze. Sorry about that. But I think y'all kept going, so that was good.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so at that point, so we got the mentorship covered and what people can do. Now,
mhm.
what can we do to make it better? To make kids like not want to grab a gun and go kill the teacher because she
Well, he
or
said
he
it.
told them what to do.
I think he said it. Just
Yeah,
positive
that's
reinforcement. Talking to these kids. I've said before, just asking someone how they're doing today, noticing little gestures. If they're keeping their coat on and it's warm, they may have bruises on their arm. I say, hey, what's going on?
mhm.
You have to look at small little things and engage people directly. Hey, what's going on with you today? I noticed you coming in a little later, and don't embarrass them. Of course, ask them over to the side. Hey, and if you see that you're not the person that they're going to listen to, taking that information to the right parties that they may have that time to talk to, or reaching out to the parents.
Right.
Actually, hey, I noticed this is going on. I noticed little Johnny. He's missing that. Yeah, we provide the pencils for him, but he feels a little bad about that, not having a pencil every single day. Am I correct with that? You're right there. You're on the front line,
Front
sir.
line.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I agree. No. I agree with you 100%. But I would also add, for me, it's accountability. It goes back to holding him accountable early on. Cammie, you asked the question like, what can we do to stop these kids picking up gun and getting mad at their teacher early on? And goes back to that school system issue. To me, it's holding them accountable. They have to have some type of consequence in place early on throughout, the adolescent age. I'm talking elementary school. There needs to be consequences for action. They need to understand that if A happens, this is the result. If you do wrong, this is the consequence for doing wrong. And a lot of times these kids are coming through, going all the way to 12th grade with no consequences whatsoever. And the first time Mr. Such and such gives me a F because I didn't do my work and now I don't graduate. This is the first time I'm being held accountable. Now I'm mad. I don't know how to respond to this. I'm 18 years old. I'm not graduating. Mr. Such and such is keeping me from graduating. I'm mad. I'm going to go get me a gun and kill him.
Right.
This is the first time they're being held accountable. It's the first time somebody told them no. And they don't know how to deal with being told no. They don't know how to deal with responses in the negative to what they want. When they don't get what they want, for a lot of them, it's not only mental. Sometimes it's just a temper tantrum.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's a temper tantrum. I don't. Sometimes sometimes it's part of their upbringing, but a lot of times, it's like I said, it's just acting out, and they're grown. They don't know how to respond to it.
Right. We had that wave of teens having babies and grandmothers were
Mhm.
stuck raising those babies. And so grandma's too old, at this point. They patients can only go so far. But then you
Right.
have a teenage mother who has no education, who has no accountability themselves. So how can a baby raise a baby? So you got that generation going on. You do. It's
Right.
true.
They're
And
doing
so
it though.
Yeah.
It's they're.
Trust me.
and
I
Mhm.
so
probably shouldn't say that, but I had a couple of them this year. I had a couple of eighth grade girls this year who I really didn't see for most of the year, but that was the reason why they
yeah,
were in eighth
yeah,
grade and pregnant.
Mhm.
yeah.
And I'd say starting with sex education earlier. I think that should come more so from the family. I know it when I was coming up, and I'm just speaking from my standpoint. It was shown in school. It was something that was given to us in school.
And
It
that was
it
completely
wasn't a part
wrong.
of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right. But they did tell us about it in school, and now it wasn't a part of the curriculum, but they
Hmm.
called an outside organization in to show us film talking about, giving us sexual education as well as what could happen, STDs. They taught us about those things, but I think that that's something that should be talked about at home and getting that information about out at home, and parents should be talking to their children about it sooner rather than later. I think sometimes
Exactly.
when we think that, oh, they're in junior high, it's too soon to be talking about that. And next thing you know, like I have an eighth grade, like I said, two eighth grade girls pregnant. So it's something that should be
Yeah.
mentioned, early on. They're old enough to understand and comprehend, because they hear it in the music, they see it in the movies, they hear it on the radio, so they know
It's
about it.
everywhere.
But
It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
they can hear it all those other places, but they're not hearing it from you as a parent. So they're gonna go with what they heard first. If you
Yeah.
don't say anything, if you don't tell them the right way and how to be responsible about it, they're gonna go with what they see in the movies. They're gonna go with what they hear on the radio.
You can pull up anything on the internet right now. Doesn't matter how old you are. If the parent doesn't put certain restrictions on those phones, they can find whatever sex act. No one likes to talk about that just on Twitter or on anything. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
definitely there. It doesn't surprise me with what you told me about some of the students that you've come in contact with, that are going through that right now, because
Mhm.
it's there. You listen to their conversations, they're having adult conversations, like they're dealing with adult
Oh,
matters. This person has
absolutely.
been involved with this person for this amount of time, and they did this, and can you believe, like, what in the world? Me at that age, I was just thinking about what Sesame Street and what just what in the Schoolhouse Rock, you know? I
Right.
mean, my goodness, it's, yeah, they're definitely dealing with more than what we had to deal with. I'm 50 years old. So, it's
Right.
like me sitting back watching all these things, like, what happened?
Yeah.
They have resources to more information. They
Absolutely.
Some parents are not as careful with what they're doing in front of their parents. It goes into so many different things. This conversation could turn
Right.
into so many other conversations, but yeah, it's too much out there for these kids to see. This generation of kids to see,
Right.
and it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Yeah,
Right.
that's my rant.
Yeah. I I often talk to my students about just going to college, taking it to the next level, taking their education higher. So even in junior high, even in seventh and eighth grade, I'm talking college already. I'm planting that seed in their head. Go to the next level, get as much education as you can. Even if you want to be an entrepreneur, you still have to know how to manage a business, how to stick with something and complete it and see it through. That's what college will teach you. A lot of times you're figuring out what type of adult you want to be and what you want to focus on while you're there. So I'm still an advocate for college. I know some people are just, there's a large group of entrepreneurs taking off right now. And college, I tell my students, college might not be for everybody, but I'm still an advocate for it. I went to the best college in the world, if you ask me, the Great Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. But
There we go.
I definitely, talk to them about just taking their education to the next level. And I told them, like, they ask me questions. They'll say, how did you pay for that? How did you what else did you do in college? Is it like what I see on the movies? That's what they're asking me about. And I'm like,
Yeah. That's
so
the only thing they can relate to,
that's
Dave.
what they can relate to. You're
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. So, I tell them I went on a half academic, half athletic scholarship that covered my tuition in full. So I had to play football and keep my grades up.
Mm.
And I have so many students saying, "Oh, I'm going to go to the NBA. I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to the MLS. My soccer players, all of that." And I tell them, I say, you know what a typical day is like playing college football since you're going to the NFL, sir. That's your number one career choice. I said, so you have to keep your grades up. I say you wake up in the morning at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. You go lift weights You'll shower. You'll be ready for your class. After breakfast at about 8 o'clock, you stay in class from about 8 to 1, 8 to 1:30. You'll get out of class. You'll go back to practice, be on the field by 2:30, 3 o'clock. You'll practice from about 3 to about 6:30. 6:30, you go in, shower, you go to eat. Then you have to be back in the gym, back in the weight room for another 30 to 45 minutes.
Wow.
Then from there, you go back to the stadium at probably around 8 o'clock at night. And from 8 o'clock at night till about 11:30, almost midnight, you're watching film of the practice that you had earlier that day. Then you get to go study
Wow.
at midnight.
But you got to keep those grades up.
But because you got to keep your grades up. Then you get to go study around midnight when everybody else has started studying at 7 o'clock in the evening. You get to study at midnight, and then you got to be up again in the morning because you got weights again.
Yeah, the routine starts over.
But you going to the NFL? I say I can't even get you to turn in 5 problems to me. You don't even have the work ethic to do that. But you talking about a work ethic like that for college football? Okay.
Not ready.
But you know,
It's
that was
already
very
yeah,
early,
it
too.
woke them up
Yeah.
though, I'm sure. You know,
Absolutely. So it was just a small glimpse, but for them. And I said I went to a D2 Little Morehouse College. You talking about going D1? Okay, let me know. So I'm just giving you an idea. So I tell them, change your mindset. You gotta develop a work ethic. You gotta be able to be dedicated to something and see it through. If you gotta do this work and make those grades because you want to be on the field, work hard enough to stay on the field, stay eligible, do the right thing, stay out of trouble, eat right, do your workout so you can be the best at your position. So that's the only way you're making it to the NFL.
Let me ask you this. So you're dealing with the different cultures. You have your African Americans and your Hispanic Americans. So that's the majority. And that's kind of what I work with too, right? When I worked for Girls Inc. And I found that it was 2 different levels of family orientation type thing. I found that the majority of my Hispanic families were really bonded. They really cared about their students, about the kids and their education, but they didn't really want them to go past high school. Once high school was over, they pretty much was ready for those kids to get out and work and start their life. Is that still similar
Yes,
today?
I agree, and I'll tell you why. Most Hispanic families that I encounter, there is somebody or some group in the family that has their own business, and it's successful and it has sustained this family so far. Because I think historically in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, Hispanic families were not even here as much here in the country that deep. And then when the ones that were here had to create a life for themselves, they were not being hired. I think Blacks were on the forefront of trying to break into corporate America and expand throughout the country in that way. So you have the Hispanic families that have that are the builders. They have the plumbers. They do the manual labor a lot more than you see, any other race. I think here in this country, for the most part, you see mostly Hispanics being construction work. The blue collar workers have become more Hispanic from just what I can see. So that you don't have a history of that in African American households. You don't have a history of you might have 1 or 2 guys that are in the neighborhood, the shade tree mechanic, we all know, that has that cigarette hanging out his mouth. He might be an African American. You might have one guy who might be a plumber who works for a few families in the neighborhood, but not an on-scale business. Most of the Hispanic families that I know, there's an uncle, there's a father, there's a granddad who has an all-out business that feeds the entire family, right? That feeds everybody, that everybody eats from. And once they get that high school education, they're ready to work for the business. She can be a secretary, she can do the numbers. There's one person that's that's handling the books. They all have a position in that business. And you don't see that as much in African American families, unfortunately.
Yeah. I remember me trying to get the students, to go, who had a college fair. And I remember a couple of parents didn't want their kids to participate. And I couldn't even imagine why you wouldn't want your kid to attend a college fair, possible scholarship to further their education. But I mean, that's what it was. That parent wanted that child to stop so they could start working. And that's, how it
Yeah,
was then,
that's
and that was just a few years ago. So I can only imagine, like what you said, David, you probably 100% right at this point, because it was hard to even grasp why. That was my main question. Why? And I
mm,
just couldn't get it at that time. I just couldn't get it. Why would you not want your child to be fully educated? Why would you not want your child, you know? And I think what the 15th, after their
mm.
15th, they celebrate the 15th, and after that, they're
Yeah,
pretty much marriage material.
yeah, the quinceañera. I know.
Quinceanera, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
After that, but they are usually ready for, especially the boys. They are ready for those boys to get to work in the business. That it's more it's strength for them. It's the strength in the numbers that they have working in the business.
Wow. So now, do you think? Because you don't really see now. I hate to say, you see
Mm.
all this shoot 'em up, bang bang, mostly African Americans, mostly Caucasian. You don't really see the
Hispanic.
Hispanics out there like that.
No.
Is there a
That
reason for that, you think?
I couldn't even
It
answer
was
that one. I don't
it's
know.
so
I
much.
agree with you, but I don't.
hmm It's so much balance in their own country. That they when they come to America or just cross those borders, let's say that they're just
Mm.
ready to leave that type of life and just build something a little greater, a little better. You remember Lopez? You remember, like, just listening to some of what his family went through. You know who I'm talking about, Cammy.
George Lopez?
No, no, someone who worked for us at
Oh,
before. So just listening to some of those stories on Ray, listening, and his sister and all,
mhm.
just listen to what they went through to get to where they are. Their stories actually give you those answers. They're just here to make a better life. So they still clear. They stay close knit within their families. Like I said, they're building their empires, and
Mhm.
that's what they're honed in. They're
Low
sending money back
profile.
home. They're
Mhm.
yeah, they're here to make their entire family, their generation. It's generational,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's what I understand from that. That's why we probably don't see that as much. They're focused on family. They're focused on building.
Yeah.
And
Every,
I mean,
I,
that's the answer I have. That's what I've noticed.
Hey, if you think about it, think about this. Asian people can come into the United States, build their own communities, and the communities can thrive on their own. Hispanics can do the same thing. They can come from Mexico, come from wherever, and build their own little communities here. African Americans, Black people we are the only race of individuals who were brought here against our will, were forced under the federal government, enforced to try, where we were stripped of our history, stripped of our connection to the homeland, where we don't know. And basically Black Americans, our connection is just here in America. So we were, because they stripped us of our history, they stripped us of our
Right.
past. So all we know is what we know here in America, and we have been dealing with going against a racist construct from the beginning. No other race of people have had to deal with that. Hispanics still have a connection to Mexico. They, like you
Mhm.
said, they work here, build their own communities, and send money back home. Asian
Mhm.
communities do the same thing. Chinese communities do the same thing. Almost every other race of people even received money from the federal government once they
Yeah.
came over here. Every
hmm
immigrant that came here to the United States, they got some type of funding. Japanese, Chinese, Asian, Hispanic. The only race of people that didn't receive anything are African Americans. Black people were forced here against our will and then forced by the federal government into slavery. We're the only one that had laws put against us in this country. So we're only 50, 60 years removed from Jim Crow, if you think about it, which is crazy,
Yes.
right? We're only 50, 60 years removed from Jim Crow, and we're just starting to kind of get things to be better. We're still having first. That's the crazy part
Right.
to me in this country. We're still having the first Black whatever. That's
Mhm.
ridiculous to me. And that is I think, a major part of why we're struggling as a race that people don't want to even look at. You like I think the great Dr. Martin Luther King once said, you're trying to tell a bootless man to pick himself up by his bootstraps when we weren't given any boots to begin with.
That's true. That's
Yes,
true.
I remember that statement. Yes.
Wow.
Wow. And you
So
know what? I was watching a documentary maybe about a month ago, just strolling through YouTube, and the subject was hidden Black figures.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hidden because they were whitewashed. So there are certain industries, certain people in politics that were actually African American, or their wives were, and they were passing, or they were actually going back into the 1800s. They were actually black individuals, right? That
Mm-hmm.
were their the paintings of them were changed. You might know what I'm talking about. You might have seen this a
Yeah.
little bit, but no one touches this. There was supposedly another president that was a little bit more African American than the pictures depict that person to be, but or in a certain it's certain, you know, literature out there that they changed the names, I don't know how to even
yeah,
put it
that
together,
happened a
but
lot in
what is it
history
like?
though.
A brunette woman was actually an African American woman, but then they changed the way it was actually written to, and it was their
Mm-hmm.
women, their wives, their mothers were actually black, but
Right.
they were whitewashed. They were pushed to marry someone that was white. So that
Right.
changed the look of the family. It was so, man, I was just so, I was
Blown
outraged,
away.
engaged, interested, but you have to sort of find those things, and then it's the conspiracy theories that have to do it. I don't want to get into all of that, but
Uh-huh.
it's so much more history out there that's just hidden. That's my point.
Yeah. But
And
didn't
Right.
the
they say the
government
Statue
knows.
of Liberty was black and was switched over, changed over?
Yeah, I heard she was French. Yeah, she was an Afro-French woman, supposedly the
Yeah.
woman that
Look at
posed
that.
for the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, I've
Look at
heard
Yeah.
that too.
yes.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, guys, our time is almost up. David, got to
So
have you back.
Hmm. Oh,
definitely.
thank you. Anytime you guys need me to come, I'll definitely come back. I appreciate you having me
I
on
think
today.
this is a strong subject, and I think even just trying to corral a mentorship pool some sort of way, if we can
Mhm.
get people to email us and say they want to be a part of the mentorship. You got a program going, you got the book club, maybe we can shoot people that way and try to
Mhm.
build it in the different states, because our platform is worldwide. So maybe we can get that and get somebody to take ownership and build it in the different states, and
Absolutely.
the way say that Million Man March, we can do it.
Hey, we
We can do it.
definitely can. We definitely
Yeah,
can.
I think our
What was the name of your organization again? Just in your areas, maybe some individuals who may want to join. If you
Uh,
have any information, or maybe we can post it afterwards.
Yeah, sure. One I was part of, I haven't been able to work with it as much, like you said, but there's one called the Marcus Graham Project. A friend of mine I went to Morehouse with, his name is Larry Arrell. He is a co-founder along with his partner Lincoln Steffens. The Marcus Graham Project focuses on junior and senior high school students from different backgrounds, and kind of gives them the structure and the exposure to working in corporate America, even as high schoolers. So they do a project. They kind of get internships to college, and it just kind
nice.
of fosters them in that direction the right way, to kind of help give some diversity to corporate America. And it's one of the bigger projects. I think I believe the Marcus Graham Project is probably nationwide right now, but
I've
they
heard
do
of
a
it.
great they do a great job every year. And yeah, Larry and Lincoln are both from Dallas, but I was at Morehouse with Larry back in
What's his
98
last
to
name?
Yarrell, 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 Larry Yarrell.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nice, nice. So we'll post that and
Yeah.
Okay.
go do some research and post that on our platform here.
For
And
sure.
so I want to give a shout out to DJ T Nice. He's the one who's been moving our things around. Thank you, sir. We
Great job.
appreciate you, our
Always.
producer. And
Absolutely.
so he moves us around. So thank you. And thank you, Cuz, for being on the show. Thank you,
No
Ron
problem.
Foster, co-hosting. Until
Most
next
definitely.
week, same time, right here, SKST Radio. Booyah, baby.